Plumbing up, top kit. Need quite a heavy float actually on this. You can see how it's got a good depth just off the top kit, around about what, 4 foot, and it tends to go out here, hits the bottom shelf, and then stays literally laser flat, and then comes back up on the shallow water. And it is like that on every single peg round here because it's been laser cut. It's stunning fishery. So on this one, the reasoning behind where I like fishing, if I can get away with it on a top kit, is to get on that hard bottom. You can see there, it's still starting, not silting up, but there's a lot of clay on the bottom. You can see from the aerators running about, it is a bit clayish. So I tend to use a 0.6 gram float, just a bomb down, and I like to use quite a long bristle, like 40 millimeters, simply just because the smaller fish here tend to play around with it. A 3-inch hook link. I've got a size 18 KKM B guide hook, and then just a simple strung bulk 3-inch hook link, or 12. Plenty on here for getting these fish. Elastic wise, I got to be honest, I do like this Dan's elastic. This is the red one. I think it's 2 mil. Perfect for these 1.6. And then just plumbing up straight on the top kit. You can see there it's just starting to go off, which is perfect. Go out again. It's gone now, just to the bottom of the body. And I know then that the bulk, I'm going to be fishing the bulk literally inch off deck, and you get a lot of lift bites on here. I always find personally that when you get the lift bites, the fish is hooked every time. Bait wise, I started using this seafood expander mix from Hinders. I think it's fantastic. You can't go wrong with it, to be honest. Generally just mix it up on a wet side, fishing down the margins, a little bit drier fishing out. I think Chris has already done a video on this, and there's no lies in it. It's exactly what everyone's doing. Cut it with 3 pints of ground bait to about a pint of maggots, and then tend to fish a 70-30 mix of micros and 4s, and stick a good handful of that in, and feeding a ball around year big, and after the fish, and that's it. So we're going to start off on a expander today, which is just a 4mm expander. Maggot seems to have sort of lost its edge at the moment, and you tend to get bitted out a little bit. So let's have a look. See those little things playing around with it. See, missed that one completely. This place is absolutely rammed with fish. The typical sort of stamps around 8 ounces. Then the bigger F1s, there you go, fish on. Tend to let the bites develop here. If you leave them too long, then you just seem to get a better hook hold all the time. There's so many small fish in that if you don't let it develop, you're wasting your time. Pull the fish to one side, doesn't upset your feeding line, and that's the typical stamp of the mirrors here. So I'll just push that slightly down that slope, there you go. The bites can be quite tricky, as you can see. There's a lot of very small fish in here. Just let it go and then develop. There you go. Fish on. Small one again. Just feed. I'll look below that. Not swing that in. Yeah, so the rule here is these can be swung in and then thrown back. Don't count in the net. Andy doesn't want them in the net for the preservation of the fish, so we all chuck them back. One of the things, keeping the rig straight, there's a lot of other ideas out there what a lot of people do, like putting a BB sort of an inch from the float. I personally find it really difficult to control the rig that way, but it does work, you know, and also if allowed. But You know, on this it says no overshotted rigs, and I think if you put a BB just above the float and then let the rig relax, it's definitely going to sink. So I think personally, to avoid any accusations of bending the rules, I think you're better off just not to bother putting a big shot above the float. But what I tend to do, and I found works well for me, is make the rigs out of really, really stiff, thick line. So today, and this is no joke, you know, I'm using, the rig here is 023, and it's quite a stiff line, and all it does then effectively when the rig goes over on the slap is it keeps everything stiff. And then again, I tend to use a 2-inch or even a 3-inch 2-inch hook link, and then the rig runs on the line. Again, very, very small float, very easy to make yourself, to be honest. Just, it's a bit smaller than a lot smaller than a sort of like a P type float, but I just find it perfect. In feed slot, couple of slaps, keep that rig tight, they're in there, and then you'll know when they're on because it just pulls the pole over. And you can see there, there's absolutely rigid with fish, yet they're still not taking it. Fishing on the maggot and the slop and maggot. You don't have to be too tight with your feed either. I find a lot of the anglers on here, the good shallow anglers, they'll tend to feed one area and then fish beyond or even just around the feed, because a lot of these F1s, they're starting to become pole shy, and I think at that point you can just trying to pick them off. You can fish a longer lash, but again, the must is, and sometimes a longer lash definitely helps for the speed game. If it's windy or you're shipping out, say you're fishing 13 metres, then a lash of say 18 inches can work, but again, you keep saying it, it's just paramount that you've got to keep that rig taut. And again, you can use quite a stiff line, 412 bottom. Again, on this one, fishing maggot, on the slop maggot, but again, you can fish in the pellet. I'll just use a banded pellet, a lot of people use lassos. You can keep that rig tight. You can see, once you get them there, it's just a fish a chuck really. There's no real rush. No secrets. As my ginger friend always says, tell no secrets, tell no lies. Again, some of these F1s, absolutely, that's a fantail there, it's a beautiful fish. He's going to be a big boy later on in his life. .6 of a gram, strung bulk, and on this one I'm using a 1.8mm pink Dan's elastic. It's just a little bit more robust and to pull them away from that edge. Right now I'm just using double maggot, again double dead, just a long top kit on a colmic plus a short fore, tight to that edge. You just want to look for a real positive pull. There's so many small fish in here. They tend to congregate a lot of the time by the boards, but again, corn's a pretty good bait for pulling them out. Oops, foul hook. Oh, so many fish down there now, that's the problem. Small fish. It's quite remarkable actually on this. This is only a year old and they've already bred. So it's going to be one hell of a venue in what, 2 or 3 years time. It's going to be 250, 350 pound weights on this place if you can get on it. what I tend to do a lot of the time is keep myself completely active. You can't, even though it's not a fish race per se, and you always want to frame, I always find that you've always got to keep, when you're fishing one rig, I always think that when you're fishing one area, you've always got to be mindful and keep the other one fed, topped up, and also when it starts to fade, move quickly, because if you don't, then you're going to have to then feed another area, wait, and by that time you could be 10, 15 or even 20 fish behind, and if someone's sacking on F1 shallow, you're 25 pound down. So I tend to either fish margins, and right now I'd be pinging a few pellets long if I was fishing on a long pole at 13 metres, or again just keep that feed going in, top kit +1 or slop shallow, whatever your thing is just keep doing it, just remain active. Again, you don't have to take mega loads of feed on here, but at the right time they do respond to it. I tend to be fairly heavy feeder, but then again on shallow fishing here I found if you feed too much you'll just end up getting too many of those F1s in your peg, and in even fishing 6 inches deep you'll suffer from foul hookers. So shallow wise, what I always try to do is just to feed just as a hooker fish, get it in, feed a pouch or half a pouch, ship back out again, fish on, maybe feed again as you're playing the fish, or just feed when you can, but tend not to. If you feed when you've got your rig in the water, you just end up getting plagued with foul hookers. So another tip, and it's just starting to happen now, is if you start getting plagued with foul hookers and you float dancing around all over the place, come off the deck down the edge. It can be an inch, can even be half depth. Like on this one, I've just come literally half depth. As you're feeding that slop, if the F1s come down there, they'll tend to want to feed off the deck anyway. And you'll find if you can get the F1s down that edge, you won't get plagued with the small fish. And the bigger ones will just sit on top of the little ones. It's all about putting more fish in the net at the end of the day, and just being, again, more fluid. Really is quite difficult to do if you're not used to it. And it's just to try and keep everything